Here again is Stone Phillips.
You probably heard President Clinton recently complain about what he called the unremitting drumbeat of negativism from conservative critics. He specifically mentioned right-wing broadcaster Rush Limbaugh. But Limbaugh isn't alone in leading the anti-Clinton charge. You're about to meet another professional president basher who's growing more influential every day. As Lisa Myers reports, 50-year-old R. Emmett Tyrrell has declared war on the White House, and his policy is strictly scorched earth. Leave nothing and no one standing.
They say a magazine reflects the personality of its editor.
I think that all these guys have 3 testicles down there. Oops, sorry.
That it should have a point of view.
Jimmy Carter? A grinning dunce.
And should be willing to take on anyone, even the president.
I just don't understand how he could have gone from Oxford and Yale to become such a hick. I mean...
R. Emmett Tyrrell, presidential nemesis and conservative bad boy, has elevated Clinton bashing to a sport.
Do you have anything nice to say about the president?
I hope not. I think it's very touching that he's such a hard worker and that he wants to tell us what a hard worker is.
Well, that's not nice. Do you have anything nice to say about this president?
I admire his ability to bring things to confusion.
Even before Whitewater, almost every month, Tyrrell was loading his slingshot and firing it at the Oval Office. Sometimes he fires boulders, sometimes just a little gravel. And not infrequently, the target is the First Lady.
Can you ever imagine running a cover with Barbara Bush and witches?
I didn't disagree with Barbara Bush on much.
Good afternoon, the American Spectator.
For 27 years, Tyrrell and the Spectator have been known for unflinching conservatism and rhetorical exuberance.
These are people who have written for the American Spectator.
He calls himself editor-in-chief for life, the kind of exalted title you give yourself when you found a magazine in the 60s to, as he put it, oppose the idiots.
I have a different take on Richard Nixon. I knew him as a drinking companion.
He is all too happy to advertise his personal relationship with Republican presidents.
He made the best martinis of any man I ever knew.
But it's not all showboating. President Reagan, while in office, came to his home for dinner.
Is that a picture of the evening?
This is the old cowboy himself.
But occasionally, Tyrrell and the Spectator have been known to trash Republicans. This is a 1989 cover featuring Dan Quayle. Tyrrell called him a male bimbo.
But I have to tell you, Dan Quayle turned out to be a very graceful victim.
Still, for a conservative writer, the election of Bill Clinton was a gift from heaven. Finally, a Democrat in the White House, and one who provided such rich material.
Since the Clintons have been in office, your magazine has been having a field day. How much... You smile.
Well, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet it has.
What I would like to see is this man be president forever. I'll be the most powerful. I'll be bigger than Rupert Murdoch when this is over.
These days, the Spectator still does the kind of scathing policy critique you'd expect from a magazine about public policy. But that's not what has increased circulation tenfold and shaken the columns of the White House. Now the magazine also gleefully dishes dirt about the latest White House scandal and about the private lives of the President and Mrs. Clinton.
The Spectator traffics in titillation. It's part of the way it draws its readers.
Kathleen Hall Jameson is dean of the Annenberg School of Journalism.
I'm a member of the public. I go to a magazine stand. I buy the American Spectator. How much should I believe of what I read?
If you start from the position that Bill Clinton is the incarnation of all that is evil and has the morals of a sea slug, then one will not find the American Spectator to be off course.
We say what we think is true. We say what we think needs to be said. We don't care what other people think. That's why we publish pieces that other people don't publish.
Example, his cheatin' heart. An expose of Governor Clinton's alleged affairs is told by Arkansas state troopers. They said they were responsible for everything from, quote, arranging sex sessions in hotel rooms and parking lots to sneaking women into the governor's mansion while Hillary and Chelsea slept, unquote. The White House denied the allegations, called them outrageous.
It was right that these state troopers came forward and talked about how the governor corrupted the Arkansas State Police Force, turned him into a collection of pimps.
Tyrrell even boasted of this piece to his teenage daughter's history class. He calls it the most devastating article ever published about a sitting president. Pat Buchanan, who is hardly a liberal, said that trooper's story was lurid, lewd, and degrading.
All that is true, but it happened. I didn't do it, Bill did it. That's the kind of man you have in the White House.
Do you have any reservations about getting into this kind of political reporting?
What kind of political reporting?
Into the kind of the tabloid.
It's not you have a tabloid president, you're going to report stories of a tabloid nature. We've got a tabloid president.
But the president wasn't the only one under the microscope. That story also goes after Hillary Clinton.
It doesn't go after Hillary Clinton. It reports what people said about Hillary Clinton.
It says that she has a garbage mouth, likes to intimidate men.
Yeah. Well, if you want to use the verb you want, I'm just telling you, don't represent it as though it was an editorial by me. It was the report of troopers who had spent years in her company.
He's willing to ruin people's lives, to lie, to engage in anything to do it.
James Carville, the president's top political strategist, calls Tyrrell and the Spectator bottom feeders on the media food chain.
Some people are constrained by some sense of the truth or some sense of decency. What makes them unique is they don't have these constraints. So they do anything that they want.
This is a direct line to the governor's mansion in Arkansas.
The Spectator was not the only news organization aware of the troopers' allegations, but it broke the story and went much further and into more lurid detail than anyone else that followed. Since then, the overall credibility of the troopers and specific allegations have been questioned.
When I went into the hotel room, Mr. Clinton, we talked for a few moments, and then he proceeded to take my hand.
Paula Jones, who's now suing the president for sexual harassment, says she had to come forward because of inaccuracies in the Spectator. Paula Jones said that what you reported in your magazine is simply not true. Your magazine suggested that she had sex when she was in that room and that she later offered to be Governor Clinton's regular girlfriend.
We reported the trooper said that, yeah.
But did anyone else corroborate that Paula Jones had said that?
First of all, we didn't say her name was Paula Jones.
So if you don't give her last name, you only need one source?
Well, I mean, Arkansas is a big state.
Do you acknowledge it was a mistake?
No, I don't think that's a mistake.
In a statement filed in an Arkansas court, the trooper changed part of his story after being sued by Jones. Like many of the allegations in this story, it's hard to be sure where the truth lies.
The American Spectator, at its worst, is engaging in innuendo and smear rather than in a straightforward propositional attack on its opponents.
And at its best?
At its best, it's uncovering stories that otherwise are not going to get into the mainstream press.
But within 2 days, the American Spectator's Troopergate story was on every network and in newspapers across the country. Not bad for a magazine with a circulation of only 300,000.
Listen to this, man. Can you imagine those guerrillas from Arkansas laying Foster's body out, arms right by his side, gun in hand? I can just see him crimping his tie a bit.
Now Carville is quoting from an interview Tyrrell gave to Esquire magazine, in which Tyrrell joked that presidential aide Vince Foster's death may not have been a suicide.
You have a widow down there, you have children, and you have a man saying this in spite of every piece of evidence that has ever been produced. What else can you say about a guy that would say something like this? He's just another scumbag in Washington that wants to turn a buck.
David Brock, the American Spectator.
Michael Barone, U.S. News and World Report.
Henry Kissinger, honorary chairman of the World Cup.
This is a monthly meeting of conservative writers hosted by Tyrrell and always featuring a high-profile Republican guest. Clearly, Tyrrell has his supporters.
But when we asked nearly 24 Republicans to comment on camera about the work of the American Spectator, none would. Some did talk off the record.
Some conservatives told me that they worry that your magazine's excesses damage their credibility. How do you respond to that?
Well, I'd like to know who these idiots are, you know.
We decided not to tempt him. Tyrrell is obviously most comfortable on the attack, and with Clinton always in his sight, The Whitewater hearings are fresh ammunition.
You estimated that if Bill Clinton were convicted of all the laws you believe he has violated, he could go to jail for 178 years and be liable for $2.5 million in fines.
Yeah, it's going to be a hell of a defense fund, isn't it?
But so far there is no proof that he has violated a single law.
I mean, look, there's 20 different scandals here practically.
But
I mean, no president, no first lady in the history of the republic has been involved in so many scandals, so many discrete controversies.
Would you like to see Bill Clinton impeached?
No, I don't want to see him impeached. I want to watch this whole gaudy round continue to the very Shakespearean end with the two of them on the balcony, daggers over each other's heart. No, you do it, I'll do it.
By the way, like many political magazines, the American Spectator gets a lot of private financial support. In fact, from 1988 to 1992, it received more than $1 million in contributions, mostly from conservative groups.